Hello, everyone, and welcome to Educated STEM. Today, it's video 4 as we go on our little journey with Dr. Mahadeo Sukhai, who is a low vision scientist. So please go back and watch his previous videos where we talk about what being low vision is, what his experience as a low vision individual has been through his education and his career, and about his scientific career and highlights. So today, we are actually going to talk about the fact that he volunteers for many different organizations. That's actually how I met him. He was volunteering for the National Postdoctoral Association. So my first question is, why do you want to be involved? Because I don't think I can count the number of places you've volunteered on both hands and feet.
Short answer is my parents made me. That is literally the short answer. My parents made me. I can expand on that, and I assume you want me to expand on that. So when I was a teenager, my parents were engaged in community volunteer activities, and they really wanted to get their kids involved. They thought it would be good for us and also a good sort of family bonding thing, because their volunteer activities were taking a lot of time, and they felt that a good way for the family to stay connected and engage with each other and not lose ourselves in the Canadian cultural zeitgeist of the early 1990s, was to volunteer together. And so I think, you know, unbeknownst to any of us at the time, my parents had this motto that the family that volunteered together stayed together. So that's what we did. Now I think I told you before, I started university when I was 15, so I started high school when I was 10, right? So Sheldon Cooper-esque, I think, is a good way to put it. And in those days, high school in the province of Ontario, in the country of Canada, was 5 years, not 4 years. And so I started volunteering when I was in the 5th year of high school. Now I was 15 in the 5th year of high school. And I wasn't really very social. In fact, I had no friends. No, that's not true. I had a couple of friends, and they were all in the library club with me, which was the best place to make friends because there were books and there were people who liked books, and we were the ones who controlled access to the books. And so if you had overdue books, I was the one saying, no, you can't have this one. And so I had a few friends. And I think my parents were a little bit concerned about my lack of a social life. And so they felt that volunteering was, at least for me, I can't speak to the others in the family, but at least for me, it was a way to potentially break out of my shell and build a little bit of character. And they were correct about that. And so I started volunteering in 1993, December 10th, 1993, when I was 15, and 1 month and 3.5 weeks. And from there, I never stopped volunteering. So I've been volunteering for what's now 32 years almost as of the time of this conversation with you. And for 31 of those years, I've actually been in a position of leadership in some way, shape, or form. And so I was the one who was quite happy to be the group's secretary back when the secretary was a professional term and not just the term for taking notes, because nobody likes to take notes. I was actually joking with a friend of mine yesterday about how in the blindness community taking notes is a dirty thing to do because nobody likes to do it, and it's not thought to be a high capacity activity, which I always find quite funny because taking notes is a way that people actually learn. And so journaling and introspection and taking notes is a way to actually absorb information. And so the person who takes the notes in any kind of setting is the person who is more likely to engage with the contents of the meeting or the contents of the activity. So I started as the secretary in organizations that I was in, and have been in leadership positions for 32 years or 31 years in organizations, in the volunteer space. So I do it because it actually is a good thing to do. It's an altruistic thing to do. It's a character building thing to do. It's a nice thing for the CV. But the initial impetus was because my parents made me.
Okay. So obviously, you've been in a lot of leadership positions when it comes to volunteering. So how has that affected your career?
Remember we were talking in one of the previous videos about scientific soft skills. So I have a paradigm that I teach when I talk about accessibility in STEM. And so we have the hardcore technical skills of the discipline in question, right? And then surrounding that are sort of the knowledge competencies for that discipline. Surrounding that are the scientific soft skills of how to be a competent scientist. And then surrounding that are the soft skills generally of how to navigate team environments and how to navigate people and how to navigate support systems and structures that science is embedded in, um, and therefore has to get along with. And what I have found is that volunteering has actually given me um, all of those soft skills as it relates to people and systems surrounding science, right? And so I got very good at all of those soft skills, and I got very good at scientific soft skills. And I would actually say I'm much better at the scientific soft skills and the people soft skills. And while I'm very competent at technical skills and discipline specific skills, I'm extremely competent at scientific soft skills and people soft skills. And so for me, volunteering has actually been this thing that, yes, it takes time, and yes, it takes effort, and yes, it takes time away from the lab, because I mean, instead of spending until midnight in the lab setting, I was spending until less than midnight and then volunteering. And but the two aspects complement each other, so that, like, I know how to run scientific research teams. I know how to run um, I know how to run organizations. I know how to write budgets. I know how to write funding applications. I know how to write things that get money, right? I know how to work with people and navigate and oversee and mentor and supervise and coach, right? And cajole and motivate. I know how to do these things because I have been a volunteer, right? And so they help because, from my perspective, they give me a more complementary and more complete skill set. And it's an investment of time to get there, but it's also, from my perspective, these two things sort of potentiate one another. Um, I don't feel that the volunteering has taken away from being a good scientist, and I don't feel that having to be a good scientist is taken away from the volunteering. I also recognize that the way that we measure how to be a good scientist and the way that we measure productivity in STEM means that if you don't work until 3 in the morning in the lab and sleep on the couch in the office, then you're somehow not productive. And so doing all these other things, people will think you're splitting your focus and dividing your time when you're really not.
I will say that having been on the board, I had never been in a meeting which followed Robert's rules before.
Yeah, but that's actually my point, right? Because volunteering exposes you to things outside of STEM, and at the end of the day, we live in a world that might be very, very influenced by STEM, but isn't motivated to be like STEM,
Mhm.
right? And so having transitioned, for example, from pure academia over to the nonprofit space, where I was simply academia adjacent, I will tell you that the systems and policies and practices that actually operate inside the scientific research enterprise are not the systems and policies and practices that operate outside the scientific research enterprise. And so the STEM space is a microcosm, right? And that microcosm is one that is unique and distinct and very, very different from what I'm going to call the outside world, right? And so the outside world has these rules that, if we don't know how to operate within those rules, then we're not really sure how to navigate that space. And the volunteering actually helps us learn how to navigate that space, and how to make sure that when that space intersects with the STEM space, we actually know what to do, right? I recall this one instance when I was on the executive of the postdoc association for the University of Toronto, where the postdoc involved in planning a career event, like career development event. Basically, after spending 6 months trying to figure this out, he basically called it quits by coming to myself and the president of the PDA and saying, I really can't do this anymore. And we said, how can we help you? How can we support you? He said, I just don't have time. I'm getting married in 3 weeks. And we said, what's been the sticking point for you? And he said with a very straight face, I don't know how to do the budget. And it was so entertaining because here he was saying, I don't know how to do the budget for a career development event. And the first thought that popped into my head, which I held back, I was trying not to be snarky, the first thought that popped into my head was, who's planning your wedding? Right? 3 weeks in front of a wedding, and if you can't do a budget, who's planning your wedding? But I held my thought, right? I held it and I didn't let it out. But it stuck with me because here was this thing that's actually supposed to help you grow with these real life skills, and you're not doing it because you don't know how to do a budget, and you're not investing the time to ask questions to figure it out, and the reason you're ditching is you're going to go get married and someone else is clearly planning your wedding. But anyway, I completely digress. And so for me, volunteering has always been that space where I can learn things, I can try things out, I can figure out how the world works, and be able to apply that knowledge when I need to in the context of STEM, and also sort of vice versa, be able to apply STEM knowledge that I'm learning with the scientific soft skills in the context of what it is I'm volunteering about. And so I've always had that perspective that one sort of harmonizes with and potentiates the other, as opposed to them being two separate things that are completely distinct from each other.
So my final question for this video is, if people want to participate, what advice would you give them?
What are you interested in, right? I think you need to know what you're interested in, what you want to volunteer in. I will tell you that there's a difference between volunteering in something where you're kind of on your own and then volunteering in something where you're kind of working as part of a team, right? Like you can volunteer to do Meals on Wheels in your community, right? And that's great if you've got a car and you're willing to do Meals on Wheels, and you're going to drop lunches off once a week for, however long. And you've got a route of 10 people you're dropping lunches off for. That's fantastic. Go ahead and do it, right? If that's your thing, go and do it, and that's perfectly fine. I found that from a volunteering perspective, I was much more of the what kind of cause I'm serving by being part of a team, right? So I sit on a couple of boards now within the disability space. I sit on one board now within the health data research space. I used to sit on disability boards. I used to sit on, obviously, the NPA board, right? And so I was interested in causes. I was interested in things associated with my lived experience. I was interested in things associated with my training experience. I was interested in things associated with service to the community at large. My interests are education. My interests are clearly child and youth and disability, right? My interests are, they're a little bit eclectic, but they're also things that I resonate with in the volunteer space and would do in the volunteer space because I'm interested in them, right? Everyone's interests are different, and so I mean, like the easiest thing for me to say is go volunteer with the NPA, but I'm not going to give the NPA a free advertisement until they give me a free advertisement. And so I'm interested in saying to you, volunteer in the spaces where you feel interested, where you feel passionate, where you feel committed. If that happens to be your local postdoctoral association because you're interested in the issues, go do that. If it means you're interested in, graduate student governance, go do that. If you're in graduate school, if you're interested in animal rights, go do that. If you're interested in community service, go do that. Whatever you're interested in, go find it, go do it. My perspective is, it's always worth the time. I would actually say at this point that I also volunteer my time a lot in mentorship and sponsorship and a little bit of career coaching, right? Because again, I'm interested in nurturing the next generation of scientists, nurturing the next generation of creative and critical thinkers, and so I teach. I teach, and I spend the time that isn't paid for in teaching, in coaching, in mentoring, in fostering development, and fostering engagement, and fostering sort of the next generation of minds, right? Particularly if those are persons with disabilities who are interested in being that next generation of minds, then happy to spend time and happy to engage. And I think that's something that people did for me that came as part of my more structured volunteering, that I just choose to pay forward, right? And so a lot of my engagement isn't just around what do I like to do, it's what do I pay forward doing, what do I want to do as something that will actually say to folks who have helped me, you helped me, I'm paying this forward, I'm going to help somebody else.
That's a really nice sentiment. I like that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I do have nice sentiments.
You always have nice sentiments, Mahadeo. Okay, so I think we're done with this topic, right? Okay, so thank you for joining us today. I'm excited for the next video because Mahadeo is going to tell me all about something that he's now involved in, which is called Idea STEM. I know nothing about it, so I'm very excited to learn along with you. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you join in for that video. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.